First of all, is being part of a great community. A community which worldwide is trying to work for the good, to improve our everyday life or our understanding of the world around us. And so when you meet a colleague or when you discuss with a colleague, when you are challenged by a colleague sometimes, that's great, I think. That's a great experience. But for me personally, I think that being a scientist is like being in love all the time. So when my experiments go nicely, wow, it's like working at mid-A. When my experiments don't do what I think they should be doing or they're not successful, well, that's quite a bit of depression. But on the overall, just like being in love, it's great. On the overall, it's a great experience. Well, that was my math teacher at school. She was great at explaining things. She was so passionate about science. But while she was explaining things, most of the time I spent my time daydreaming, looking out of the window, looking at trees like the one I have on my back today, and I was imagining myself in a white coat shouting, "Eureka! I found that!" Well, first thing is the surprise. The surprise that every day has for me. I mean, I work at the MPL, which is on my back, just behind the trees, and it's full of scientists measuring all sorts of unbelievable stuff. And when I meet some of them in the corridors at the canteen and they tell me about their work, most of the time I just stay there, wow. And that's great. That's really great. And the other thing is, with bubbles themselves, they are a surprise, a continuous surprise. Bubbles are my work, and they are surprising all the time. Every day I discover a place in our everyday life where there are bubbles, and they are important. It is crucial to study them. And that's what I do in every day. Well, I would like to meet Pierre de Fermat. He was a French mathematician, and he's very famous for his last theorem. He actually wrote on a margin of a book that he had the solution to this incredible theorem. But he didn't have the space or the time to put the solution there, so he said, "Oh, I'll say that another time." It took 400 years for someone else to take a solution, to find a solution for that theorem. And so I would like to go to Pierre and say, "Pierre, did you really find this solution?" Well, that's easy. I read a lot. I travel as much as I can afford, I should say. And then I enjoy being in theater productions as an amateur. And then, well, most recently, I started trying to take care of my lawn. That was an incredible experience for me because in Italy we don't take so much care of our lawns. And my encounter with the lawn mower was, well, quite surprising, I must say. Well, that was in middle school, and the experiment I'm thinking about was growing plants from beans. So we were supposed to have those beans and put them on a cloth, a watered cloth, and then put them in the darkness. Oh, the thing I most remember was the smell. The smell those things did, they were terrible. But I also remember the surprise when I saw that from those beans, leaves were coming out. Life was starting. That's easy. Keep your curiosity up. Don't let anyone baffle you, because there are no stupid questions. Always ask them. Well, I have no doubt about that. It was a parabolic flight campaign with the European Space Agency. This means that you are on a plane which suddenly starts going up like a roller coaster. And while you go up, you float in the air because there is no gravity. You are going on a parabola. And so the problem is that this is done 25 times, one after the other. So, well, it's not surprising that this plane is sometimes called the vomit comet. And I discovered that on myself, and that part of the experience was so bad that one of the fellow scientists, which was flying with me, asked me if I wanted to be his guinea pig to study space sickness. Quite embarrassing, I would say. That's another one. Well, the printing press. Yes, that's because without books, we couldn't actually transfer the knowledge to someone else. We would always need to start anew. And well, I can also confess that I love the smell of a new book. And that's also easy. Clean energy. Because a world without energy is a world we cannot live in as we know it. Now, someone actually tried to make clean energy with bubbles. There was a lot of fuss about it, and you can see that bubbles are everywhere. But they were not so successful. So we are all looking, awaiting to fusion studies, hoping that they will come up with something working.